Welcome everyone back to my economics series. This is part 1.3. This is all about an overview of the economic systems. And so for a little example, let's pretend there's three people. Person 1, person 2, and person 3. And let's say we just have a bunch of oranges, right? We have a bunch of oranges. Or like let's make them lemons. Lemons, right? Blah blah blah. We have tons of lemons. And so we're like, hey, like person one's gonna be like, hey, how should we divide up these lemons? And person two is like, I don't know, like, should we divide them up evenly? Should we divide them up based on like who has the most amount of money? Like, should we just divide them based on like how much we need per day? And so what economic systems try to figure out is pretty much saying like, what's the most fairest way we should like divide up our resources based on like what are our goals? And there's traditionally three ways of pretty much organizing our economic systems that we've seen throughout the world in history. Are three types of economic systems. Economic systems. Number one is going to be our traditional economy. Traditional economy. And what traditional economies are, they're essentially just like economies that are based off tradition, thinking if we go back to our example up here, saying, hey, like we're all family, like it doesn't matter like who gets what, as long as we all fit our needs. And it's all about like just needs over wants in our idea. They're typically always characterized being the oldest of all the economies, because back then when we are hunters and gatherers, we always reverted back to our traditional economy. So for the definition, let me write that out for you. The definition is simply a system where goods production and distribution are driven by beliefs, time-honored beliefs, custom, tradition, cultures, and values. So you see that there. Let me make that a little bit bigger for you guys. Let's put it 22. Are driven by time-honored beliefs, customs, and cultures and traditions. You can think of your own family, like your mom and your dad and your sisters and your brothers, where when you eat like dinner, your parents are not going to charge you, or at least I hope they're not going to charge you. Where everyone just needs to eat how much they need. And there's a lot of examples. Examples include tribes. Tribes use as much of their resources and have little waste as possible, and bartering. And so just think of traditional economies as like, like there's less of money and more of like, hey, like you have what I need and this is what are my needs. Nice. Now moving on to our second, number two, is the command economy. Command economy. And the command economy, unlike the traditional economy, is less about like what people want and is what's more like what the government wants. Like how much does people want to spend? Like how much do we want to produce? And so we'll start with the definition first. The definition, let me get that written for you. The definition is an economy in which production, investment prices, and investment price and income are determined centrally by a government. Are determined by a government. So when you think about it, like think of like a big government, like this is our government, the big G, and saying we should produce 15 tons of agriculture. And you'd be like, well, we only need 10, but he's like 15 tons now. And everyone was like, okay, well, in the economy, we'll now have 15 tons of like corn. And so examples of this command economy are commonly known from East Germany, the USSR or the Soviet Union, and North Korea. And so think of command economy as the government commanding you to produce or buy or prices of like whatever they want to set it at. And command economies traditionally always fail, but what's cool about, or like very interesting to study about command economies is that there's a lot of market failures. And because a government can't control every single little detail about a government of an economy, gov- governments often fail at this economy. And this leads us to our third but most popular economy right now in the world. Currently, let me get that erased. Whoop. There we go. And our third economy is known as the market economy. And so, economy. And unlike a command economy, market economies are more of the essence of like saying, hey, like, we should all just be free, more a free market. Think of it as a free market where anyone can make their own decisions. You, me, businesses, anything like that. And so for our formal definition, we'll have this definition. An economic system in which production and prices are determined by unrestricted competition between private enterprises. And that's a lot. But let me break that down for you. So, an economic system in which production and prices are determined by unrestricted competition, meaning just like, like if we have two people competing and they want to set their price whenever to compete against each other, let them have the freedom to produce at whatever price they want. And you might be asking, what is a private enterprise? And so private enterprises are essentially like, me, you, just people that can make their own decisions. And let me make that a definition for you guys. Private enterprise. Price. Definition. Think of it as just a little like people or groups that can make their own decisions. Make own decisions. Think of Dwayne The Rock Johnson or Lady Gaga. And these people are their own private enterprise where they can make their own decisions about what they want to buy at what price or whatever. And so think of some examples of a market economy. Examples of a market economy. Now, they're not perfect examples because every government will add some regulations to a market economy, but let's just say, for example, the USA is perfect to think about it. The United Kingdom and things like Japan, they all allow their economy to some extent to have their own freedom to price it whatever. And so that brings us to our last definition, and that will be a market of like what of market economies allow them to do their own market. And so what does market really mean? So a market economy or sorry, let me just do a market. What does a market mean? So a market, you've heard of it, and you're like, oh, yeah, I know what a market is. You go buy your apples or whatever. And so in economics, a market is a little bit more simpler. Uh, a market just means like some. Uh, it just means more of like an an I a place or like a place where buyers and sellers meet. Think of say example. Let me scroll down a little bit. Example are like oranges. The orange market. The orange market has people that want to buy markets and want to sell oranges. And so there's an orange market. There's markets for everything you think of. And so that is comes to the conclusion of our lecture. And so let's just cover again quickly of the overview of economic systems. Number one is a traditional economy. Think tradition and families, tribes and bartering, and they're really defined about their time, beliefs, customs, cultures, and they're just like based on what their needs. A command economy is all about the big G, the big government that we like saying, I command you to do at this price, sell this much, and produce this much. And think about East Germany, USSR, North Korea, places where the government has a large influence on the economy. And think of the opposite with market economy. It's a market. Let people do what they want. It's a free place. Think about where private people, me and you, or businesses, can set and buy things at their own pleasure and their own freedom. Thank you so much.